Hello there, thank you so much for stopping by. My name is ChitChad and welcome back once again to another episode of Planet Coaster, where we are working on a Super Mario theme park. For today's episode, we're going to be adding more to the Luigi's Mansion Dark Ride. And one of the things I'm really excited about is making a kind of a new, not necessarily new area, but definitely expanding on the second floor of the mansion where the ride and the queue kind of meet each other. And one of the things I thought would be really interesting is allowing the ride to actually see out onto the exterior of the mansion. And recently I discovered a really amazing ride, and for the life of me I can't remember the builder's name, but they did a Bioshock themed ride, and it was actually featured on the Johnny 5 channel, and he does a lot of really cool showcases of people's work, and I love just checking that out every once in a while to just kind of get inspired. But one of the things I noticed was that they were able to create glass, and I thought that was super amazing. I'm like, how did they do that? And so I was like looking at all the objects. I'm like, what did they use? What did they use? And I think I saw someone post about it, and that they used the gems from the adventure pack, and I'm like, say what now? That's amazing. So we eventually end up using those gems to create glass, and I kind of feel that it's as cool as it is, it's a bit in vain, because now we have the studio DLC coming out and the free update that comes alongside it, I believe, that is going to actually give us proper glass. But you know what, we did it the creative way before they gave us the easy way, darn it. So we'll just take that for what it is. But eventually I will probably swap the glass over to be the quote-unquote proper made glass in the future when we actually get that. So you'll notice that I am altering the track a little bit more. One of the things I was having a lot of trouble with was, for whatever reason, I wasn't able to add more cars to the ride, and I don't know if it was something I did wrong with the tracks, but eventually I was able to but once I reconfigured everything, I went back and told the game to add more cars, and it worked. So I was like, okay, so what did I do wrong last time? I still don't know, but now it works. So you're gonna see me kind of expanding on the track just a little bit, modifying a little bit more to have a bit more flow to it, especially because we've expanded the second story of the Luigi's Mansion ride where it meets the queue, like I said earlier. Not that the ride itself has gotten longer, I don't mean that in that kind of way of an expansion, but I expanded the second floor to take up more space. That way, if you're in the queue, you can't necessarily always see the ride vehicle, and vice versa, the ride vehicle can't always see the queue. And I actually think that works out just a little bit better, just in terms of theming and overall being, if you were sitting in the ride, you're still kind of brought into the experience. So I was actually inspired to add these glass walls, or not necessarily the glass walls, but just to have like a lookout onto the exterior. I was actually inspired by the Hollywood Tower of Terror ride over at Disney's California Adventure, and I believe that's also in MGM Studios, or sorry, it's not called MGM Studios anymore, it's called Disney's Hollywood Studios. I believe it's there, just because there's that moment in the ride where it takes you to the very top of the drop point, and you can see out onto the rest of the park. Now, I always found it very interesting in that the ride itself, it's thematically, it takes place at night, right? But depending on what time of day you're riding it, obviously that kind of mythos is nullified, because it could either be day or it could either be night. So that's one thing I'm kind of been going back and forth on, and how I'm going to deal with that, or if I'm not going to deal with it at all. Like, maybe that's just our thematic breaking point, is that if it's daytime, it's daytime. If it's nighttime, it's nighttime. But eventually I think it would also be fun to use some sort of jump scare mechanic with these windows, where you think one of them is a window looking out, and I could take a screenshot of the exterior from the viewpoint of the ride itself, but put it into a screen and actually have like a ghost peer out and like look into it. So you think like, oh, this is just another window, but no, it's a ghost that jumps out and scares you. I think that would be kind of a fun, little bit of a jump scare there. It might work out pretty well, who knows? One of the other things I wanted to go back and do is add a lot more trigger events to this ride, and you're gonna see me particularly I think in the next episode, adding a lot more triggers of different effects, especially like lightning and smoke and lights. And I really want to flesh this ride out. I mean, this is going to be definitely the most work just in terms of theming. The Mario Kart ride that I have planned, like that's going to be a little bit of work, but it's going to be much more condensed. This ride is definitely ambitious, especially with all the animation that I want to incorporate into it. And that eventually means I'm going to be uploading a lot more on my main channel with all the different animation aspects of this ride, which I'm actually really excited for. It's going to be fun. But this area in particular has bugged me for far too long with it just being plain. So I was like, all right, you know what? For this episode, one of the major things we are going to tackle is this area, which is supposed to be a staircase that leads you into the second floor of the mansion. So this one was going to be fun because I knew you were going to have to kind of custom make the staircase. You saw that I was trying to like use the castle ones at first. I'm like, no, that's not going to work at all. We're going to have to do this the hard way, which isn't a bad thing. It just means it's going to be custom. And it was actually good that I did that because the subtle variations in the incline of the track itself would not allow for an actual consistent pattern of stairs. So you'll see I kind of had to fudge it towards the end, and I'm going to have to hide those kind of, I won't call them scenes, but definitely breaks in symmetry in order to kind of make it flow visually a little bit better. But because most of this ride is going to take place at night, and we're going to add a little bit of a jump scare, well, not necessarily a jump scare, but we're going to add a pretty cool scene here. Because I was going through some of the boss fights from Luigi's Mansion, and a certain one popped out in my mind. I'm like, ooh, that would be a good scene for this part of the ride. And I'll talk more once we get to that point. But now it is time for more questions from the Discord. That's right, I have a Discord. If you want to join the conversation and potentially have your questions answered in one of these videos, join Discord and definitely check out the Planet Coaster topics and questions subform in that Discord. So let us look at some of these questions. All right, Future 1000 asks, what about a 2D side scroller coaster? Well, Future, that is a really fun idea, though I just don't know how exciting it would be for me to kind of make just a 2D coaster. And actually, I feel like someone's made that already for, it was either Mario or Sonic that I saw it for, and that was back in like one of the alpha builds of the game. But I do really like the idea. Maybe it's something we can incorporate in another build in the future. I'm not sure, but definitely thank you for the suggestion. Spider-Man asks, are you interested in making a Spider-Man themed park? Well, Spider-Man's actually one of my favorite superheroes of all time. The Venom saga being particularly one of my favorites, and then Ben Reilly, when he had like not when he had like the Scarlet Spider like hoodie thing, but when he became kind of the replacement Spider-Man for a while, I really like that design. So Spider-Man's kind of been in my life since I was like 5 or 6 years old, so I love the character, but I don't know if that's necessarily something I would want to create in Planet Coaster, just because there's already an amazing Spider-Man property over at Universal Studios in Florida, and I realize that Mario itself will eventually also be a property in Universal Studios Florida, but you know, we don't necessarily have a lot of details on that side of the park other than that there's going to be a Mario Kart ride and a Donkey Kong themed ride, I believe. So this is still very much up in the air, and I feel that I wouldn't be able to make something that's as interesting as what they're building over, or what they already have over there, because I really love their Marvel area. But again, I love Spider-Man. I just don't think I would be able to make a whole park just based around that idea. But thank you so much for the suggestion. All right, and the last question for today's episode is going to come from my man, Digital Drew 92. I just got to say real quick, Digital Drew is the longest supporter that I have had. He's been with me since I was with a group called the Super Geek Friends, and he even follows most of the Super Geek Friends on their own ventures, whether it's Caitlin with her amazing art channel, and my friends Dustin and Amber with all their amazing indie wrestling exploits. He's just an amazing guy, love him to death, but before his question, I just had to say thank you, Drew. You are amazing, and I super appreciate you. But Drew asks, you talk about coasters you've been on, but I can't remember if you've ever told us your least favorite coaster or your least favorite theme park experience in general. All right, so my least favorite coaster, if I had to pick one, would be the New York coaster in Las Vegas. I hate that thing so much, to the point where we purchased, my dad and I, when we actually went to Las Vegas to see, we saw David Copperfield and we saw the Blue Man Group, and I was obsessed with theme parks and roller coasters still back then. So we went on the roller coaster at the New York Hotel. I hate that thing. So we actually bought, because it was cheaper to buy 2 tickets for the ride. So you had to buy tickets for it, and it was cheaper to buy. They had some deal going where like you basically, if you paid for 1, you'd get 2. And this ride was so bad that we actually didn't even use the second ticket. We threw them away. Or no, we didn't throw them. I think we gave them to somebody. We were like, hey, you want to ride this thing? All right, good luck. Don't die. It's just that roller coaster was terrible. It was so jerky. I felt like we were going to die. And I've been on some janky wooden roller coasters that I like Ghost Rider, where I thought I was going to die. But you know what? I was still having a fun time. This one, I thought I was going to die, and I was miserable. So it's just like, well, if I die on this thing, I didn't even get joy out of it, because this ride is awful. So I would definitely have to say that's my least favorite coaster that I personally have been on. A close second to that, and this will actually lead into my worst experience at a theme park in general, was I was at Magic Mountain, Six Flags. And during this particular, I think it was during summer, they were having some of the coasters go backwards. And so Superman and Batman both went backwards. Superman was actually really fun, even though this is gonna sound funny, I'm actually terrified of heights. I hate flying and I hate drop rides. There are a few exceptions, like the Hollywood Tower of Terror, or now the Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout. I like that ride. I haven't ridden the Guardians of the Galaxy, but it's basically just, it's a slap on new paint job, but the ride itself I still like. But the Superman one, it goes up really high and really fast. And so when I didn't realize it was going backwards, like I screamed so loud, but it was fun because it's over in like, 12 seconds and then you're back on the ground. And for me, I'm like kissing the ground, like, I missed you so much, never leave me again. But my worst experience was actually riding Batman, which it's one of those ski lift style coasters where the track is above you. For whatever reason, they thought that was a great idea to have that coaster running backwards. And I had literally the worst time of my life, because you couldn't really tell which direction you were going in or about to go to. So my head was getting slammed left and right and left and right. And I have never felt so ill than I did on that ride. And getting off of it, like, I had to brace myself because I kept thinking, like, not only was I going to throw up, but I felt like I was going to pass out. Like, I had hit my head so many times on this ride, and I was genuinely like holding my hands up as high as I could to kind of like brace my head left to right, but it wasn't helping. Like, I was still either hitting the bars or I was practically punching myself trying to hold my head in place. So not fun. And I kind of like semi-pass out onto this planter area where it has a bit of a it's like a planter / sitting kind of thing. And so I'm just kind of like bracing myself on that. And then all of a sudden something hits me so hard in the face that I fall to the ground. And it was some stinking kids throwing a basketball at each other. Like, they both won, like three of them actually had won basketballs over at one of the games, and they were like playing dodgeball, because that's a smart thing to do in a crowded theme park. And one of them had thrown the ball, the other kid got out of the way, and it hit me square in the side of the face, and that knocked me to the ground. And then I was definitely sick. And they were just like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I was so like out of it. I didn't even like, all I saw was like a vague impression of something that was talking to me. And my half sister was actually the one that kind of saw the whole thing. And she's like, what were you thinking? Like, to them. And yeah, that was not, I didn't have fun basically the rest of the day because I felt so ill, but I tried to make the best of it. So that is my worst theme park experience, and hopefully I'll never have one like that again, but definitely will never ride Batman going backwards ever again. It's a terrible idea. They shouldn't have done it. So that is going to be the last question for today's episode, and that's actually leading us towards the end of today's episode. So as you can see, we have built this spider because there is a spider boss in Luigi's Mansion, so I thought it would be a really cool opportunity to build a spider. Now, I myself, I'm arachnophobic, and it's funny because we were talking about Spider-Man earlier, and Spider-Man's one of my favorite superheroes, but spiders themselves creep me the crap out. Like, I don't like spiders, I don't like them near me, I don't like them anywhere in sight. Like, daddy long legs are an exception, they're not doing anything, but like anything else, like even the tiniest little jumping spider will freak me out. I'm like, no, get away from me. So yeah, don't like spiders. So it was a little bit of a harrowing journey trying to make this animatronic spider, because I was kind of looking, I'm like, oh, this thing's creeping me out a little bit. I don't know if I like working on this, but I think it turned out really cool, and I really like how the lighting kind of affects it, and we're gonna add a lot more to this area in future episodes. So that's gonna be it for today's episode. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and as always, I will chat with you later.